I can hear you.
Okay, Amy's got us. So, awesome. The time is now 7:10 p.m. and we start the regular board meeting. May I have roll call, please?
You're muted, Sheila.
Mayor Reichel,
Here?
Pro Tem Hanrahan,
Here.
Trustee Brittenell,
Here.
Trustee Clausen,
Here.
Trustee Flores, Trustee Poston,
Here.
Trustee Seifert.
Here.
May we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, be seated. All right, the first item on tonight's agenda is public comments. Persons desiring to make a public comment on items not on the agenda, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, do we have any phone calls or emails in regards to non-agenda items?
No, I did not hear from anyone today, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I don't show any raised hands either.
Okay.
No one signed in. Tracy's here for a
For
later.
An agenda item? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Easy enough, then we will move right along to the consent agenda, which contains the minutes of the October 23rd, 2023 Board of Trustees meeting. Would anyone like to discuss that or make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Motion by Trustee Seifert to approve the consent agenda as presented, which was seconded by Trustee Clausen. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Do any board members have any conflicts of interest with agenda items tonight?
Nope. None here, Mr. Mayor.
Nope.
None for me either. Any board or staff agenda changes this evening?
I'm going to talk briefly again at the end of the meeting on property taxes in the state. I wanted to just reiterate something I had said earlier for those who showed up a little later.
Okay. All right. Anything from the board? Any agenda changes?
I don't have anything.
None either. Okay. Moving right along, we will move on to the 2022 audit presentation by Blair & Associates. And I will turn this over to Treasurer Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And for time's sake, I will just turn it over to Brian Blair.
Hey, good afternoon. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. First, I'd like to thank the board for letting me come and present or be on here and present. And thanks you for the staff help during the audit process. Amy was great. Sheila was great. And then Jeff, they were all fantastic in helping us complete this audit. Really good staff you have there. So without too much further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. And I'll start on page 1. Right there. And at the top of the page, in that second paragraph, it talks about our opinion for the financial statements. Which our opinion was modified opinion. So we found no material errors within the financial statements. So obviously that's a good thing. We don't like errors. But yeah, that was our opinion for the audit, which is ultimately the entire purpose. That's really it with the letter. The next thing I'll touch on is page 5. Oh, and I think maybe it got messed up. Let's go to page 3. Sorry. Oh, yeah, page 3. My bad. So at the top of page 3, and this is starting on page 3 is the management discussion and analysis. And this is pretty much the narrative format of the audit. So this is the reading version for those that aren't necessarily just want to look at walls of numbers. So in that top section there, we talk about financial highlights. We got 5 bullet points there. You'll notice in the first bullet point, the town's net assets exceeded liabilities by about 26 million this year, or at the end of 2022. And that was an increase of about 2,160,000. So quite a good increase there. In the second bullet, the governmental fund balance was a little over 6.6 million, which is an increase of just over $1 million. And as you can see in that third bullet, the vast majority of that governmental activity is in the general fund for obvious reasons, probably 90% of it. So, and then in the fourth bullet, your long-term liabilities decreased just under, or decreased just under about 260,000. You did have one new debt this year for that street sweeper, I believe it was. And we got that added in there as well. And then the last bullet point there just talks about how property taxes and those other taxes are obviously the biggest portion of your income when it comes to general revenues and those governmental activities, 89% of the general revenues, which is fair. It's really common. So any questions on that page?
I don't think so. You did?
Nope.
Nope, we're good.
Okay, so then on page 5, which we'll skip a page, that page right there just kind of discusses the different statements. On page 5, we got a few things here. At the top, it talks again about how the net assets was about 26 million. Of that 9.3 million is unrestricted and available for ongoing financial obligations. And then that first sentence in the second paragraph, your largest portion of net assets is your capital assets, that investment in your infrastructure, your vehicles, buildings, all those things. And that's, again, fairly normal. And you'll see 60% of that is invested in capital assets. Moving on to the chart there, we've got the governmental activities and the business type activities, comparative analysis from last year to this year. As you can see, not a ton of differences. You'll see the main differences in that first line item on the governmental activities, current and other assets. It went up about, what is that, about 1.1 million. And that pretty much translates to the restricted there towards the bottom. That went up about the same. And that restriction is mostly that ARPA funds that you got that are still haven't been spent at the end of 2022. So we are required to show those as restricted. Other than that, there is a few other small restrictions, and we'll see those later. Those are really just your special revenue funds, capital, or like the Conservation Trust Fund, obviously restricted for Parks and Rec, just those smaller funds that are for specific purposes. And if there's no questions on that page, we can go to the next page. And again, we have another chart here. It's another comparative analysis. This time it's the income statement. You'll notice there are a couple variations here from last year. You notice on that first line there, charges for services in the business type activities did go up about 200,000 in the business type and also in the governmental activities. So you did have some increases there in the revenues. And then as far as general revenues, you see your sales tax went up considerably as well, about 345,000. So a nice big jump there. Other than that, the next biggest change is just your overall expenses and your governmental funds. You see it did go up about 575,000. Most of that being an increase in the general government and the public works. But other than that, just looking at the bottom line, the increases, you did have about the same increase as last year in the governmental activities, just a little bit of a drop. And then in the business type, you did have a considerable drop, and most of that was just to the decrease in capital grants this year for the business type. And then on the next page, if there's no questions there, We have a graphical representation of the governmental activities, revenues, and expenses. As you can see, obviously, the largest chunk of your revenues is coming from sales tax and other taxes, as we've already discussed. And then for the expenses, general government, public safety, and public works kind of each have a big chunk of the expenses. And then Parks and Recs has its own little piece there, but most of them are obviously in that general government, public safety, public works realm. Any questions before we move on to the next? I like to stop every once in a while and make sure everybody's still tracking.
Still good?
None here.
All right, we're still good.
Okay, so on to the next page. And actually, it's going to be the next page, page 9. We have another chart, and this is going to be your breakdown of capital assets. As you can see, we did add almost 1.1 million in the governmental funds. Most of that is in infrastructure and equipment. We did have a little piece of land and some construction in progress for that. I think it's the pedestrian bridge. Is that correct? I believe so. We're still working on that project, I believe. And then you did have a piece of land sell this year. So we got that taken off as well. Overall, you see your net investment in capital assets is 6.7. That's in that bottom right corner. 6.7 million invested in capital assets in the governmental activities. And then the next page, we have the business type activities. Again, we had about 700,000, I think, additions, and about 600,000 depreciation. Total investment just under 11 million in capital assets for the business type. The main additions here were obviously water plant, sewer plant, mostly infrastructure improvements, which is pretty normal for the business type activities, and that street sweeper we added in there as well as a mini excavator. So, and then that last chart on that page, that's just a breakdown of your long-term debt. As you can see, the lease for the PD vehicle is now gone. You made that last payment in 2022. And then we did add the street sweeper on both the governmental and enterprise activities because you did have that third breakdown for that street sweeper. And then we've still got the bonds payable on there that we're paying down. And then I think that's it for the management discussion and analysis. Any questions before we move on to a couple of the statements?
I don't have any questions.
That all looks good, yeah.
Okay. So if we go to page 12, and I always like to point this out just because a lot of people will see this item and not know exactly what it is. I'm sure you all do. I talk about it every year. That net pension asset, that's that FPPA amount that you guys have for the fire department there. And that is a net pension asset, not a net pension liability. So it is funded and it's showing as an asset on your balance sheet. It's obviously not a spendable asset, but we are required to show that, as well as the other pension items that you'll see on there. They all refer to that FPPA. And those numbers come directly, directly and indirectly from the actuary study that's done through FPPA that we get the report for. So, and then if we go ahead and go to page 18, I'm going to skip quite a few statements because a lot of it's just kind of the detail of the items we've already talked about. And certainly if you have items on any of that detail, you can ask them at any times or later on. But I really want to draw attention to page 18, 19, and 20, because as you can see, based off the request from management that we received, the water and the wastewater are now separated on the financial statements. And moving forward, they will be separated. So just so you're aware, the financial statements do look a little different this year just because they are now different line items on the financial statements. So both are obviously in very good position. That did take a little bit of time to kind of navigate those numbers and get them separated, but and obviously there's a little bit of an estimate involved there. We couldn't go back historically and look 15, 20 years in the past, so we did our best to kind of get a good estimate to where we thought they would both be. So if there's any questions on how we develop those estimates, you can certainly give us a call, or I can shoot some of that information over to Amy. But yeah, just know that those are now separated on the financial statements.
Thank you for doing that.
Yep, no problem. And then if we go to page 28, and I realize I am skipping a few pages. I like to touch the high points. I know your time is valuable and you've got other items to discuss tonight, so I don't want to take up too much time. So deposits and investments, I always like to discuss this. As you can see, the deposits, and this does not include investments in C-Safe and Call a Trust, but you're sitting just under 6.5 million. About 250, just over 250 is covered under FDIC. And the rest is all covered under PDPA, which is that Public Deposit Protection Act. So everything is safe. Just kind of giving you a snapshot in time of what your money looks like. And then on the next page, it shows the investments you got there at C-Safe and Call a Trust, and then a total breakdown of the cash. So, and that's really all I was going to touch for the notes. I usually do go to the budget statements, which start on page 40. And usually what I'll talk about here is just how you performed as far as against your budget. Really, the only thing the state is concerned about is expenditures, but obviously you want to track both to kind of see where you're at. So as far as the government or the general fund, you had about 840,000 more in revenue than you anticipated, most of that being in the taxes there. And then you also had 818,000 less in expenditures. So plus on both sides there. And the biggest difference in the expenses was obviously that capital outlay. That far right column kind of shows you favorable, unfavorable. And it was about 766,000 less in capital expenditures than you had planned for. So, and I know some of that's probably projects that just kind of get rolled forward. So it's not necessarily a savings. It's just going to get pushed to the next year, but just so you know how you did against your budget. And then on the next page, you got the park impacts funds. Again, positive on both revenue and expenditures, obviously smaller amounts. And then on the next page, you've got the conservation trust. Again, oh, sorry, not the next page. The page 44. Yeah. Positive on both those as well for the conservation trust. And then for the next one is construction impact fee. And it's positive on both of those as well. So all positive so far. But to break the streak on the next page, we got the victim assistance fund. As you can see, you're positive in revenues, but you did go a little over budget as far as expenditures is concerned. So obviously not a huge amount when we're talking about the entirety of the town's operations, just 4,600, but just something to keep in mind. And then on the next page, we got the beautification fund, and it was positive on revenues and also a little over budget on expenditures as well. And I understand most of that is you get the increased revenue, so you do things that you don't necessarily budget for, and we understand that. So, but again, positive on revenues, a little over on expenditures. And then on the next page, economic development, positive on both. So excellent there. And then on the next one, we start the enterprise funds. So you see the water fund is positive on both. Those numbers start to ramp up a little more again. Biggest difference is that capital outlay line item is about 518,000 under budget. But again, just those projects moving down the road probably. But also tap fees was much higher than you anticipated, which is good, means you're growing. And then operation expenses was a little under, so that's good as well. Then on the next page, we've got the wastewater. And as you can see, operations, well, we're positive on both. We did have some variances there, again, with capital outlay and operations. They kind of negated each other. But positive on both revenues and expenses as far as variation is concerned. And then on the next page, you got the irrigation. This one was under budget for revenues and over on expenditures, so both were a negative on this page. But I think you're probably well aware of that. And the largest portion of that expenses was just that purchase of fixed assets. And then last but not least is the Silt Housing Authority, and we're positive on both of those. So I think that's the last page as far as the budget is concerned. And then it just goes into that highway users report, which we're required to attach to the end of the audit for submission to the state. So that's where I will leave it. And if there's any questions, I will certainly answer them. If not, I will let you get back to your meeting at hand.
All right. I always ask, and I didn't see it in there, how many journal entry changes did we have this year?
So I think we had similar to last year. I think it was probably 11, 12-ish. A lot of them are entries that wouldn't necessarily show up on your side of the books anyways. It's mostly just to produce the financial statements.
Okay.
I think there was, I think we do track the capital assets. We do the additions and the depreciation on that side and then give them to management. But other than that, most of them are kind of just ones that we need to do for, say, the pension and things like that.
Okay. Awesome. We like it. That means our treasurer is doing what she's supposed to.
This is the happiest I've seen Amy all year.
Yeah. The only question I had, and I don't know if this is, who wants to answer this one, is do we know how much of an increase we had in lodging taxes after we had the voters increased that 0.5%
That's a good question.
between 21 and 22?
Our actual in 21 was 72,000 and in 22 it was 131.
Okay. That's pretty good. Almost double, and that cost our citizens nothing. That's all paid by people staying at the hotels and the KOA and stuff, so.
And so far this year, we have about 157.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
All right. That was the only question I had for that.
Pretty straightforward. Good job, Amy. Thanks for coming in,
Thank you, Amy,
Brian.
and thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yes.
Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
All right, we will. Thank you. Okay.
We need a motion to approve the audit, Amy?
We do, yeah. It's an action item, so.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve the 2022 audit presentation by Blair and Associates as presented.
Second.
Motion by trustee Seifert to approve the 2022 audit presentation by Blair and Associates as presented. Seconded by trustee Britnall. All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you guys very much. Next up is the Middle Colorado Watershed Council update. Guys would like to come up to the table and state your names.
So much.
Fill us in on what's
Slipped
happening.
in just in time.
Yes, you did, yes.
I did have a presentation I sent to
Sheila.
Jeff. Yes.
Sheila,
Sheila's got it, yep.
Sheila's
We
got
got
it.
there it is.
Jeff.
It's on the board.
Great, excellent. How are you?
You're well.
Good.
I'm
Hello,
seeing
Paula.
Andrea, and I'm like,
Yeah. Hello. Nice to see you.
it's been a while.
It's been a while. Yes.
You're back.
Yes.
That's what I was wondering. I was like,
Yeah. I left for a little while. but I
okay.
came back.
All right. Well, it's good to see you. As
Same
always,
here.
good to see you, Keith.
Yes, good evening.
Couple new faces. Jerry, how are you? I'm Paula Stepp with the Middle Colorado Watershed Council. This is Morgan Hill.
Yeah, and I'm the board president. You all saw me
Yes.
like a month ago or something for Garfield Clean Energy Collaborative, if that rings a bell. So yeah, I've been on the board for the Middle Colorado since we incorporated back in 2013. Although the organization existed before that, I think since 2009. And I've been the board president, I think, for about 4 years. Something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe longer?
Maybe 5. I don't remember.
Anyway, so great to have Morgan as our board president, just because with all that knowledge of history and being able to carry forward. And I have presented to you now for a few years. There are some new faces, I believe. I don't recognize Derek, so I'm like,
I'm used to that.
okay, sorry, Derek. So Middle Colorado, like Morgan said, has been around since 2013 as a nonprofit. And really what our mission is to protect, enhance, and evaluate the watershed around the Colorado River from Glenwood Canyon to DeBeck, basically. And we work with our stakeholders to do that. And I've come to you in the last couple of years and mentioned what we're doing with post-fire from the Grizzly Creek fire and how that makes a difference for our towns along the river corridor, in particular water quality monitoring, working with Trey and Sarah at the water treatment plant, trying to help mitigate some of that sediment that's always coming through and setting up a warning system. We also set up, with some funding from the state, a USGS water monitoring right above the town of Silt, so that when those levels for temperature and turbidity spike, people at the water treatment plant are able to see it pretty quickly, and they're also able to see upstream. Because if something happens in Glenwood Canyon, it takes hours before it gets down to Silt, so that gives them some additional time for warning. The other thing we did with that is create a data dashboard that each town is set up with, so they can quickly see all of that information all at once. And that's in the bottom image there. That would be like a screenshot of, you can see a warning with those little red icons, and the green icons mean that things are relatively normal. And most of the time when those little red icons are going, it's turbidity. So it's a quick look to say, what is it? And you can click on that icon and actually see what the changes are. As a result of what work we've done with post-wildfire, on the next slide, Sheila, we have, with encouragement from CDPHE, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, and with CWCB funding, we started working on a wildfire collaborative to be wildfire ready. Not only for bringing the collaborative together to say what do we need to do to mitigate, public lands and private lands to prevent. I'm not going to say prevent wildfires because we're going to have wildfires here in Garfield County. We're just known for that around the state, but to at least mitigate what the impact of that wildfire might be. And then we just received funding to do a risk analysis to not only look at what happens, what we can do before the wildfire, but what can we do when a wildfire hits to put things in place so that, as with the water treatment plant, we know ahead of time that this could be heavily impacted. What kind of things can we do in advance? And that's the intent of that, where once that risk analysis is done, we'll go back and show each town what's there and other community members, and they can make decisions on just kind of their future and if they have to put resources towards stuff or support going back for grant funding to put resources towards that kind of thing. So that's Wildfire Collaborative, but before we jump into this, I did want to mention that I sent to Jeff the MOU that this collaborative has put together. The collaborative is the fire districts, the towns, Battle Mesa Metro District, U.S. Forest Service, Colorado State Forestry, BLM, CPW, anybody within this watershed that would be worried about the next wildfire coming and be in a position where they could say, we want to work together, we want to do cross-boundary projects, we want to be proactive. So that MOU included the town of Silt. Trey has been to some of those wildfire collaborative meetings. And really, compared to the other collaboratives which completely surround this area, we're moving pretty fast and pretty well, but there's still a lot to do. But to be at this point with an MOU is a bit of an anomaly. So if we can get this under our belts, then we can work on some other things within that collaborative. So I encourage you to review that and hopefully sign it and be a part of this, as I've asked for your participation for the last year. Restoration, we're still working with the town of Silt, with ABLT and with other partners on the Silt Preserve. This year, what we've done is we've had some funding to continue to work with water rights and have had meetings with the stakeholders regarding that. It isn't as much funding as before, but still we're able to continue to fill in gaps with the funding that we have remaining. And then we also had some money to help with planting last October and planting money towards the plants for this October. And for buying some irrigation equipment that we could use where those ponds are now filling most of the time when we have free water.
Free water conditions.
Yeah, so it looks really good. And because we had such a good winter last year, it's just really exciting to go out there and see those, the habitat that's improving out there and the resources. One of the things that we have been working on is best management practices for gravel pit restoration. And Trey and I have talked about this a bit because there is a gravel pit to the west of that Silt Preserve that there's been discussion. The town has had discussion with CPW and the gravel pit owners, and I've also been exploring it because we're putting together this best management practices, but I would love to see if the town of Silt would like some kind of preliminary design to say, if you did take this over, whether it was for recreation, it sounds like it would no longer be for water treatment, but how could we give you some preliminary designs because we have a little bit of funding to at least kind of lay that out, what that might look like. And I'm throwing this out there and I haven't really talked to Trey about it, but it's on my agenda, Trey. But there's an opportunity there just to kind of go, you know, what could you do with this? And then we're also looking at we're working with low-tech hydrological to look at best management practices for floodplain uses. So when you're looking at the Colorado River, what you should be aware of as far as building near it and that type of stuff. And it's not meant to change code. It is just meant to be advisory. And so we're working with the county on that and each of the towns. And both of those best management practices we'll bring to you before it's finalized. So you can say, here's what we're looking at. What do you think? In particular, I think for gravel pits, because so much happens around the town of Silt, that it'll be good to have you guys, as a council, and Jeff and Trey kind of take a look at it and see what you think. And then on the next slide. Recreation, still an important part of what we do, and one of the things that we've finished up this year, which I'm super excited about, is a couple years ago I came to you and brought you an English version of our river access guide, places that recreationalists, anglers, boaters, etc. can get into the river, information about etiquette, information about safety, and we received funding to be able to make this a Spanish version now. So I brought 5 copies so that we could leave them here at the town of Silt for your Spanish-speaking neighbors and friends and have that accessible. We do have more copies. I just wanted to start getting it out in front of folks. And we did, like I said, a couple of years ago, I came with the English version and we got down, I think we were down to about 20, 25 copies. And I just heard this last week that I was able to get a little more funding to get additional English language versions. So I can bring some of those again by the town hall in case people want to come by and pick them up. And Silt boat ramp, it looks really done. It does. And the parking lot's expanded and so is the area for the boat ramps. But we still need to do the signage. And I just spoke with, I have a little bit of funding and I spoke with Roaring Fork Fishing Alliance and they are coming in with a match for us for about $1,000. So we'll be able to get that signage in there for staging and how long to leave your boats there and that type of stuff. We had our Wild and Scenic Film Fest. Love for you guys to come and join us some year. This year we're going to do a public speaking series with information about the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Endangered Fish Program and the 15-mile reach, why does that make a difference for us? And really it's a call on the river. So July, August, it makes a difference to what we can have at the Silt Preserve. So there'll be a speaker talking on that, and we have somebody talking about Lake Powell, kind of a bigger event, and also talking about stream restoration. So we're excited. We haven't done this before. Those are the big ones that I could think. I don't want to read my slides to you. I never like to do that, but that's the big picture. And then the last slide, considering the future. I've just had some recent conversations with the town manager, Jeff, and with Trey, and with Deborah Figueroa, and looking at a regional drought contingency plan. So she and I have had some meetings on what would that mean with, CWCB and maybe getting a water plan grant. And I'm just reaching out to other towns at this point to see their interest, to see how that might help the town of Silt and how that might help everybody as far as future planning. And then we'll continue, like I said, on the wildfire readiness and restoration projects, removing invasives, replacing with plantings, and the last one is I did some outreach recently on a state fund for a regional conservation and recreation district. I've got enough on my plate that I can't jump into this too much, but this grant comes up every fall, and it's something maybe to consider again as a regional thing with other towns, and as a possibility for the future that, as you know, many of the towns along the river corridor are getting into having mountain biking trails and having this and having that, and being able to access that recreation audience. And then the last slide is me coming back to you, and I know that you're at the end of budget season, but requesting the continued support that you've been able to offer. In 2023, you were able to provide $3,000. It makes a big difference to help us on our operating cost, to be able to do things like go find grants and participate. And Morgan wanted to say a word or two also about how this support has been so important to us.
Yeah, well, one thing about the Middle Colorado Watershed Council that makes it unique from other organizations is this collaborative aspect and bringing different entities together that do water quality and quantity related work in the area. But we have this special role that helps engage, like I said, these different players. And so having the support of an entity like yours really makes a big difference, and the partnership with the town of Silt around projects like the boat ramp and things like that. So we do a lot of great work with a small team, and our board is also a working board. We're very dedicated and put in a fair amount of time to making sure that our operations run smoothly and we're doing good work for the watershed. So we really appreciate your contribution for 2024 of $3,000. And I don't know, do you want to talk any more about some of what you get as a donor?
Mostly it's recognition of, within our, the events that we speak about the people that support us, and we put information in the newsletter. We highlight it on our website. So it's really kind of saying the town of Silt is a part of what we do, and is a partner in all that we do. We used to call this an Adopt a River program, but it just kind of feels like it's more than just adopting the river. Of course, we want you to adopt the Colorado River. It's adopting the watershed. So we've kind of gone beyond that. There's so much more to kind of include in what you're adopting. And it's really helping us to just take care of the water that we have, especially in, these years of drought and other things that we have to deal with, to protect that water, drought, wildfire, etc. The other thing I just wanted to bring back again is really if you could take a look at the MOU for the Wildfire Collaborative, because we are trying to get that wrapped up hopefully by the end of the year, have all the signers on board. We've got about half right now.
Okay. The MOU was included in our packet, so we've all got
Okay.
a chance
Oh, great.
to read that yet. So.
It was not included.
It was.
Oh, it was
Yes.
included. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yep.
Great. Well, I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate the support that you provide, and hope you can help us out as we move into 2024.
All right.
All right.
Thank you for coming out. Any questions?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Comments by the board?
Oh, just quick follow-up question on water rights, Paula. When you talk about, is it drinking water rights for the county or for?
So the drinking water, the water rights that we're working with was really revolved around our Silt Preserve project.
Okay.
We were able to get funding to bring in right water engineers, and they were able to investigate what the water rights were out there and how we could use them for either filling the ponds or irrigating out there. And then where we're at right now is determining if there's a private entity to the east of the preserve that has some water rights himself, and we've had some discussion on whether or not he wants to do some things changing his water rights around a bit, and whether or not we could do something to facilitate helping him to maybe gain a water right or two off of this main ditch.
For this specific
To be
project.
closer to the pond. We don't really work with your water rights
Yeah.
regarding your
General
drinking water.
water.
But it comes up in conversation to say, what does the town of Silt have in water rights? What are we using out there right now? And what would help us just in the long run on that project?
And the main water rights on that are augmented water rights for filling them ponds. You gotta have water rights for the evaporation that'll come off them ponds. Currently, we can keep them full when there's free river conditions. Cameo call is usually the first call to go on the river. Once that goes on, we've gotta stop filling the ponds. So, and just FYI, currently they're not filled because we're getting ready to put the bridge in. So we had to dry it up a little bit to get the bridge in. So don't go out there expecting to see ice or water in the ponds at the moment.
But the bridge is gonna look really cool from the
Yes.
design I saw, so.
The bridge should look really cool once they get it done. We started that today.
All right.
And just from my perspective on what they're asking for, between Paula's times and the grants she's got for us, it was well worth the $3,000 we spent last year. We probably doubled, tripled that in Paula's times and grants that we've got with Paula's help, so.
What percent of your budget does that $3,000 represent?
It's an odd thing with our budget because I get these grants and I can get a grant for $500,000 where $499,000 of it goes to USGS. So when I say it, it's a very small percent of our bigger budget. But for our operating budget, our operating budget is about 150,000. So I kind of look at it towards what that is. And I didn't give you a percentage, I just gave you numbers.
It's okay. I can do the math.
Yeah, I was gonna piggyback on Trey. I think this is one that definitely that $3,000
Money
comes
well
back
spent.
to us multiple times.
Oh, yes,
I
agreed.
mean, just the amount of work at the boat ramp that got completed was, we never would have done that with $3,000. So.
Well, anyway.
Not at all. I don't know if you know how much what gravel costs, but $3,000 we wouldn't have got a whole lot of anything out there. So
No.
We wouldn't have got it cleared, let alone.
yeah, let alone yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. I assume we probably already have a line item in the budget that Jeff's looking for right now.
We do.
We do?
Yep, it's in there.
It's in there? Okay. All right. Well, we'll be approving our final budget in a couple weeks, so.
Well, thank you very much, and it's great to work with the town of Silt. I just have to say, working with Jeff, working with Trey, and wonderful. And for a while, we had Jerry on our board, so there we go.
All right.
I'm going to leave these with you, maybe somebody in the
Yes,
office.
sure,
can-
Paula.
Okay, great.
I can take them.
Great.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you
you very
guys.
much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we'll bring the wildfire collaborative to you too on the 27th.
Okay.
Action item.
MOU as an action item, all right. Sounds great.
Trey can tell you all about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or we'll have Paula back. I don't know.
I
Either
will
way.
do that.
Yeah.
It's for pretty simple. It's just, we're gonna work together, folks.
Yeah. There was, and I'm trying to find it in that MOU. There was one language that I thought was odd for an MOU. It was about the termination, that anybody at any time can terminate all or part of the MOU. Usually,
It's a Forest Service agreement.
yeah.
And it has more to do with kind of federal government,
Okay.
but I could find out more information for you.
Yeah, there's just usually not that in part, like you can't exclude that we don't want to follow rule A, but we want to do B through Z, so
Yeah.
that language just was a little odd for,
I'll double check, so.
yeah, section M,
Okay,
is where
section
that's at,
M.
yeah.
I've read it so many times, you know, by this time I'm just kind of glancing.
just kind of glancing, yeah.
Yeah, but I'll definitely take a look at that.
Okay,
Great.
all right.
Thank you.
Right, thank you very much.
Good night, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.
Find out.
Okay,
Good
we'll
to
talk.
see you back.
Nice to see you.
Next item on the agenda is the Mind Springs update on the progress and funding discussion of the detox center. You guys would like to come up to the table and state your names? We'll get off and running on this one.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for having us. Hans Luckring, Regional Outreach Director for Mind Springs Health. Been the Program Director for the outpatient Mind Springs Health operations here in Garfield County for close to the last 5 years. And this is Tracy Harris, and she's in charge of all things substance use for our awesome organization. So.
I'm Tracy Harris. I'm the SUD Director for Mind Springs Health, so I'm the Director of our Current Withdrawal Management Unit down in Grand Junction and our residential programs, and I'll be the Director in charge of the Linwood Springs Withdrawal Management. And just let me know if you have trouble understanding me. I'm happy to say it in a different way, okay?
We're okay, I think.
Okay.
No,
Yeah,
I'm
we're good, yeah.
good.
Okay, we do have a little presentation for you. You can kind of see it up here. So withdrawal management, and you can move to the next slide. There we go. This is where we're at with our progress. We have planned on having 8 beds. We're looking into the possibility of upping that to 10. We're just checking with the fire and life safety code to see if that's a possibility. But right now, for sure 8, maybe 2 more. It'll be a medically monitored level of care, which is a little bit different than what was originally envisioned. So I feel like I've talked about it to a few different folks, but I know that probably all of you haven't kind of heard that, the main differences between a social model, which is what we had originally intended, and the medically monitored model is that we'll have nursing staff and providers, and we'll be able to kind of manage our own medical clearance, which will really take the burden off of hospitals to do that. And I think I have a little bit more detail on the next slide about that. We've also got a brief construction update. And these pictures are actually, so you can kind of see like the electric and some of the pipes going in, but now that's all covered, all the concrete is in. So we had definitely, had some delays with the construction and just being able to get everything we needed, the equipment we needed, but it is all in now, and the concrete is in. So all the external construction is done, and we're now into framing. So we do have a target open date. It is end of first quarter, so probably March of 24. And we don't foresee that construction will trouble that any now, that really is a kind of internal building that needs to be finished up. So we are hoping to stay on target now. Any questions about that or the construction?
No, I
don't
know
have any, no.
it's been tough to get construction projects moving along.
Yeah, it's good that it is moving.
It doesn't look like that anymore.
No, it is not, I know.
And I missed the last tour.
Yeah, it's all the internal framing's up, water lines connected, concrete work's done. Got our permits from, we've got the agreement with the school district to deal with kind of the access for paramedics and those kinds of things, some of the larger vehicles that would need to get in there. We needed to have an agreement signed with Roaring Fork School District. So we have that and have a pathway in and out so that paramedics can effectively drop people off when that's necessary.
Weren't there also some pending issues with electrical panels?
Yeah.
Those were, going back to the mayor's point about supply chain, those were, but that, I'm going back now almost 30 days, so they've probably been updated by now.
Yeah, there's no supply chain issues. I think that the panel that you were talking about, I mean, is like 200 days out is where we were back, I think.
A few months back.
Yeah, it's been a few months. And we've just, I stay in touch with Bobby, who's our GC at RAM Development, and he communicated to me 2 weeks ago. There are no more supply chain issues. And there are no more issues with, we kind of got pushed back with the concrete project and some other things until we dealt with the permits with the city of Glenwood, and then also that agreement with the school district to make that S-curve out of there so that paramedics could have that access. So he does not anticipate any other issues with having the project be completed by the end of the first quarter, which is pretty significant. This has been, almost 4-year process, it seems like, when we started these conversations about detox and recovery. So we're there. It's pretty cool.
So these are just the benefits of the medically monitored level of care versus the social model. There's a federal push to move to this model. It is a safer model for depressant withdrawal specifically, which includes alcohol, which is a large population that we serve. It's much safer to have meds on site. It's much safer to have nurse monitoring. There's medications that are set on site, medical staff on site. And we also do get paid a higher rate, which will make the project more sustainable in the long term. So all in all, it is, a benefit. And then the benefit to the community is it should be less stress on hospitals. A social model really relies on community hospitals to clear or medically evaluate patients and then send them with meds when needed, but we'll be able to do that internally, so there won't be that need. Any questions about that?
I know Stacy from Valley View was a big advocate of this upgrade
Mm-hmm.
in terms of offloading people out of the ER and having this facility as a new use.
And it was absolutely reduces the burden on, both emergency departments, Grand River and Valley View, to have to do that medical clearance for us, let alone the logistics around the transport between those processes of when someone needed to go, and then we couldn't clear them, the emergency department was going to have to clear them, and they're going to have to arrange transport to the facility, whereas now, because we could do this medical clearance, it can be direct drop-off if it's law enforcement, if it's EMS. So it just really simplifies the logistics of the whole process for us.
So who would make that determination whether they take a patient to the hospital or to Wine Springs?
We were talking to Doug Gerald today, actually just on another one of our larger continuum update meetings, and that when EMS is involved, they're going to still do a screen of some kind and determine whether or not someone's stable enough to to drop them off at the facility. And I think for some of the more higher acuity, Tracy can speak to this, since we have a medically managed 3.7 model now in Junction that we're running. But thinking about there's still going to be those times where people are going to have to go to the emergency room first. It just kind of depends on what happens with that initial assessment if EMS is involved and they determine that they feel like they can drop them. Mm-hmm. And then when they hit our doors, then that second assessment, our initial assessment is going to occur about whether or not we feel like this is something that we can medically manage safely.
Right. Yeah, so, really the referrals come in from all over. Some folks will show up at your hospitals no matter what. That's just, what they're comfortable with, and they'll show up there. Others will be brought in by EMS or law enforcement. Others will walk in themselves, or be brought by family members. For walk-ins, our RNs will be able to kind of look at the criteria, clear them, staff it with the provider, And we do sometimes see the need to send to the hospital if they're really issue. It's much, just a much higher burden with the medically monitored detox though. So I would say we average maybe one a week in our Grand Junction detox that we need to send. And, you know, to kind of give you an idea, that detox is a 15-bed detox. And normally what we find is it's for kind of unrelated medical. Somebody's saying they have chest pains, something like that. We're going to send them to the hospital to be safe. Every once in a while, we have somebody who will go into such severe withdrawal that they really have to be hospitalized and given IV meds. That's really an inpatient level of care. It doesn't happen all that often, though. We're really able to manage over 90, probably 95%, I would say, of withdrawal ourselves.
All right. So 15 beds in Junction.
Mhm.
And what's their population? Best guess? Anybody?
Isn't it?
About 70,000.
Look at that.
That's rounding up.
Compared to the population that'll be potentially using this new facility in Glenwood, it's half that?
If, I mean, it kind of
Less,
depends.
probably 40%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're on to the next slide. This is our progress on funding. So you can kind of see what we've been able to secure so far in capital. And then we do have our MOU, which you're a part of. And we did ask that a couple of our MOU partners switch some of their funds from operations to capital, which they did do for us. So that's that 240. We do have about 460 still there on our capital to finish it off. We're committed to doing it no matter what, but we are working on grants and other things to try to cover that cost. We have one big grant that we're applying for this month for about $100,000. We're also still pursuing the opioid abatement dollars as a possibility. And Pitkin has also come to us and asked and kind of expressed an interest in maybe participating, which we're just kind of initially talking to folks about. That conversation hasn't gone much further than what I just said, but we want our constituents to kind of be aware that that is something that they've expressed interest in.
Which, I mean, they were going to be part of, you know, who we were going to serve regardless of whether they were at the table to contribute financially. But the couple of conversations that we've had with them have been optimistic about whether or not they could contribute. I think understanding as well that they were always going to potentially have people coming to the detox in Glenwood.
The numbers that we've run when we did our budget for our average daily census were really based on, I believe, a census of 5, 6, and 7. So, you know, that's kind of what, when we took the data and we really looked at what it would be, we were thinking that it might be somewhere in that range, 5, 6, or 7. And we, of course, have an 8-bed facility, and again, we're hopeful that maybe we could add a couple more as well, just to make sure that we are covering the need for the county. This is just kind of a little bit of data for you guys. So this is the Hartsville County residents that end up admitted to the Grand Junction detox over about a year's worth of time for any given month. So as an example, like in August, 3, but last January as many as 7, but that's in the month, you know, and like I said, we're talking about a 8-bed facility, so 8 every day. I feel like has, you know, a significant amount that was served, and then there were definitely some clients that, of course, never end up down in Grand Junction. These probably represent your most severe cases, folks that really need withdrawal management to the point where they're willing to arrange, you know, transportation, get through all those barriers, get them down to Grand Junction to do that. Any questions about that part? I think that's the last slide for you. We did, I think, include the letter that is the request for continued funding for the MOU for 2024. We're asking for the same contribution from all of our partners for next year as we did for this year, which is the 2,000 for you.
Okay. I just have one question on the funding request. It says $2,000 for the operations. So are we contributing to is there an operations fund that's currently got a balance in it as opposed to the capital fund?
Yeah, so the MOU was designed for an operations fund. So actually, all of the dollars for 2023 and 2024 that we're requesting will be spent on operations, except for the three exceptions that actually decided and voted to switch their money to capital. And we're so close to needing operations fund. Yeah, it's a pot that we'll spend out of very soon. I would say very soon, December, January, we're gonna need to start hiring, and we're gonna need to start getting operations up and running to be ready to go. We probably need about a month, I would say, after construction is totally finished, just to get everybody in the building, get all the stuff in the building, get the meds in the building, and then we hope to be ready to operate.
Okay.
Was our funding this year for 2023 also operational?
Mm-hmm. It was, yeah.
But that was converted because of the delay in the opening, right?
It is your guys' funds, so it's still for operations. So we're just holding it until we have operations suspended on, which will be very soon.
I have no questions.
Yeah, I'm just curious on the rating scale. Because on your letter it says 3.2, and now you're 3.7.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work? I mean, is there higher numbers than 3.7?
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
That is the difference between a socially monitored and a medically monitored. The threes, it's called an ASAM, it's an addictions medicine rating scale. So 2 is like an outpatient level of care, and 1 is like a low intensity outpatient. A 4 is a hospital level of care.
Oh, okay.
So the 3.7 is really right underneath the hospital.
Uh-huh. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
My only concern, I saw Debbie Wild at an unrelated event a week or 2 ago, and she let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, about the Pitkin County possibility. My only concern is that I'd like to see their usage data.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
And how does their involvement affect the availability of those rooms to the residents of Silt? If they're 7 beds out of 8, their funding should represent that.
Mm-hmm.
Was how I had expressed my concern to her.
That totally makes sense. And we're working on gathering data from Pitkin and to regather it from the other hospitals as well, because it's been a few years, I think, since that original data. We want to present it to you so you can kind of see it and make a decision from there. The way the MOU works is any new participant has to be approved by the whole of the MOU. So we'd like to get that stuff in front of you so you can kind of see what you think.
And then I'll just state my comment that I make every year during this discussion is, when this first started, I wanted to make sure there was a separation between Mine Springs and the detox program. And as we move down this path, those two things keep getting closer and closer and closer. And it feels like we are using taxpayers' money now to fund a private business. That's just how I feel about it. I think that when we're spending taxpayers' dollars, we need to make sure that it's being spent as the taxpayers would like to see it be done. There's always been the thing, well, we're not going to automatically say that this patient has to get counseling at Mine Springs. They'll be free to go wherever they want, but now it's so much more convenient to get treated and aftercare at the same facility that now, as taxpayers, we're funneling customers to Mine Springs. That's just my take on it.
I mean, I think it's a fair statement. You know, I would just say this, and certainly having, you know, the last 5 years of my professional, you know, career being involved in community mental health, the need in our community far outweighs our capacity, you know, to take care of these people. It's not just, you know, it's not just us. We know that we can't be the end all for everything. And to me, like how I do things, especially now as the outreach director, everything that I do is based on partnerships and understanding that we need to make sure that our silos are down and that we have good relationships with our partners, knowing that it's unrealistic to think that everyone who comes through this new withdrawal management facility is going to be able to ultimately be served from, you know, by Mine Springs in an outpatient setting. I mean, some of the realities of our staffing shortages just as a behavioral health continuum make that glaringly apparent that we don't need to be fed. Like I mean, it's every entity right now, you know, we really are trying to work together so that we complement each other's programs and have those partnerships and not be, you know, turf protective about what's going on. So, you know, and I can only say that, you know, as to how we do business is really based. We can only be effective if we have these active partnerships and that we have a complementary behavioral health system. So,
I mean, that's the data I would like to see.
Yeah.
Once it is operational, to see what
where the referrals
trends
are going.
Yeah.
And I've been advocating the same thing, Mr. Mayor, transparency and reporting. Once the facility opens, I think I was in the data nerd group at the initial gathering that we had in Glenwood a couple of months ago now, but I am equally concerned. And some of that is the recent past of Mine Springs. I'm not blaming anyone in the room, but there is some reputational damage there that needs to be recovered.
Yeah.
But the larger question is transparency, just about general use, not even specific to an agency, but what is the overall care journey that these people are receiving? That's what I'm interested in knowing.
Yeah.
That's certainly a derivative outcome.
Right. And I 100% agree this program is needed. It's just how it ends up working in the end, because I don't think anyone knows exactly how it's gonna go. I think everyone has an idea, and they, you know, and we'll just have to see what happens. So
we can come in front of you as often as you need us to, and give you what we have, and then be challenged about what we're doing and how we're doing it. I mean, I think that it's part of us having space with you guys is being able to say, you know, we're doing everything we can to heal the relationships that need to be healed, and, you know, not overpromise and then underdeliver, and make sure that you guys have access to who you need access to in our organization, from the CEO on down. They're happy to come talk to you and anybody really that we call partners. I think that's the starting point. That's the bare minimum that we can kind of do.
And Mason from Garfield County is another transparency advocate, and he's managing a lot of that data up at the county level. He and I had some conversations over the last couple of weeks. He's also an advocate of that. I just want to put the data out there. He's like, I don't want to interpret it. I don't want to manipulate it. I just want to say, here's the data,
right,
because our needs and our wants are going to be different from Glenwood's, from Rifles, from Newcastle's, if Picken County gets involved, et cetera, et cetera. He's like, I just want to put it out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was great to hear from him.
Yeah, and he's co-facilitating the larger, you know, recovery continuum group that we're all a part of, and that a big focus is getting this up and off the ground.
Yeah, he's a gatekeeper on a large portion of that data.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I loved seeing progress. Yeah, I know it's been long delayed, but you know, I think this is another one where we'll see what our donation does, and see what happens.
Well, and you can hold my feet to the fire. I mean, that'll be my job, is to make sure that I have a presence with you, and you have access to me through the data, through the transparency, and how things are going as we get it up and off the ground.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other
Thank you.
questions? Okay. All right. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks for the time.
Yes, have a
Appreciate your
wonderful
support.
evening. Yes, nice to
See
meet you
both.
guys.
Yep.
Nice to meet you, Tracy.
Yes.
Take care.
All right. Next up is the Colorado River Valley Economic Development Partnership update. Come on up and state your name. There you go. Yeah.
Getting late into the night.
Alicia Gressley, I'm with the Colorado River Valley Economic Development Partnership. Renamed the partnership by myself as I am losing breath saying the full name.
I didn't come up with that name.
No, I know. I ran with the. It's a bit like the firm, right?
That's
It's
right.
kind of how I see it. Firstly, thank you for your time this evening. I know it's been a long evening. It's a bit like Shark Tank, seems like tonight. We're just all asking for money here and pitching our case. It's also Broncos Bills night. We are up 15 to 8 at the half. So if anybody wanted
Figured
to know,
Trey was keeping tabs on that for us.
He was watching.
No.
I was.
Trey doesn't care about the
Avalanche is playing.
Oh, there you go.
Care less about the Broncos.
I'm diehard, so.
What do you think's on his screen right now?
Yeah, exactly.
Hockey. It's hockey.
No,
No, it's the packet.
see, that's the packet.
Don't worry, I've got you guys covered.
All right. All right.
So I am here tonight representing the partnership. It is in its infancy, and I will say it did come about from your fearless leader here, Jeff. The 4 town managers have been getting together. I hope that's no secret. That you're all having kind of lunch together, having discussions about how as a region we can all benefit from working together. And that's kind of how the partnership first started. And over the last 18 months to 2 years, there's been a lot of discussions and building relationships, bringing in partners. We can go to the next slide, actually, for what is the CRV EDP. Thank you. Of how to approach economic development. I'm going to give you full disclosure right now. I am a Rifle resident. I'm actually a city councillor too, so I know your side of it as well. And I say that because I think in the past, and we'll go into this a little bit more, economic development, there's been a sense of that it's been very rifle-centered. I personally don't see that myself. I'm probably more regional as well. I've lived in this area in Western Garfield County for full-time 5 years, part-time 8 years, and I've been in the area for almost 20. So I've seen it change and evolve. I ended up in Glenwood Springs in 2005 off the Amtrak train. So I've seen the changes that have happened over time. There's a belief, and I know you all understand this as well, that rising tide lifts all boats. We are small municipalities on our own. I know that statistic of Grand Junction because I look at that sort of data all the time. And from an economic development standpoint, individually on our towns, Newcastle, Silt, Rifle, Parachute, we're not really going to attract the big business or help our existing businesses on our own. I think it is a regional effort. And I say regional in the sense of we are also a little bit tired of being lumped into Glenwood and Carbondale. From a county standpoint, we do have some great assets here in our Western Garfield County, and I think it's time that we put our resources together to really produce for our region. So that's part of what this group is as well. Invested partners, the Hirsch Initiative with Aspen Institute has been a huge stakeholder in bringing a lot of the players together. But part of our committee as well, Garfield County Libraries, is a contributor financially as well as with so much information and resources. I can't thank them enough for everything that they've contributed. Colorado Workforce, AGNC is a big partner. Colorado Mountain College, the Small Business Development Center, which is a huge region, as you know. They have 10 counties underneath them. So we're all kind of working together to provide these economic benefits to our region. And that's something that hasn't really happened here. I know they were trying to get a lot of stuff off the ground and then COVID hit, but we get forgotten about a little bit out here. The main goal is to provide resources to existing businesses. I think that's key here. I spent a lot of time talking one-on-one with many people in the area, and that is our low-hanging fruit. A lot of our businesses are tired. I hear that a lot. They're tired wearing every hat. They don't have the time or the ability or the resources to even understand what marketing is these days, let alone go out and do it. They can't hire employees. A lot of our employees are commuting, or a lot of our residences are commuting to other areas. So I think the main focus of this group has to be to focus on our existing businesses and how to provide them resources and lift them up. And then look long-term to how do you attract other businesses to create more jobs here. A regional approach, as I mentioned, is better suited to attracting new businesses, as they're often looking at access to main resources, schools, grocery stores, housing. So when you have people looking at where are we going to put our headquarters, would it be great if they looked at Silt and said, yes, we're going to pick that? Yeah, absolutely. But what they're going to look at is what is close within the region that would make sense for us to bring a whole headquarters or operation to the area. And Silt definitely could be that. I think you as a community already have some great organizations here. I have an 8-month-old and a 3-year-old, and I went to Silt Women's Health, which changed everything for me, being able to come to a clinic that close. You have one of the best restaurants this side of the canyon, I think. Martini Tuesdays, of course. It's tomorrow night. But there's a lot of opportunity, I think, here. So we can go to the next slide, please. So that brings you to who am I? I mentioned a little bit first. I'm Alicia Gressley. I have my own business. Actually, my background is in the ski resort industry. I worked for Vail Resorts for 17 years, starting at the ticket office and working my way up to business development for the lodging division in Eagle County. Kind of created my own job there too. I did the commute myself for 2 years, rifled to Avon, and then the pandemic hit, and I always think silver linings, but I got to work from home for 2 years, and I got to be more involved in my community. I was not here. For that 2 years I commuted, I was here to sleep. But being at home and working in the area, I became a lot more connected, and that's what allowed me to understand a little bit more about the dynamic of this area. So I think I have an understanding of what most people are doing. We were commuting for a career or a higher paying job, but not always looking at the other side of it, the costs or the impacts on mental health or relationships or home life. So I finished up that career essentially last year and started my own business. I saw an opportunity just through some networking and understanding that this partnership was forming and they needed a bit of organization. The county was hesitant to participate because they wanted to see more structure and more organization. So I proposed to come in and help form the organization, get everybody built, collect data, strategic planning, just a few things to get the group going. They had been talking a lot, but they hadn't actually moved forward with anything. So I say that my retainer is an economic multiplier because what I am making is going straight back into the community and childcare, grocery store, and likely the liquor store too. So Martini Tuesdays. So it's all about hiring local and spending our money in our region. We've actually achieved quite a few. I know that you asked this of me at our last meeting, but I feel like we've achieved a few of our goals on the proposal. We do have a board. It's a committee, a board, a voting board, and we can go to the next slide actually, and I can talk about how that was formed. So one of the goals is obviously to drive funding, as everybody's doing, but the group needed an organization. They needed a board or a voting committee Currently, they are under the umbrella of the Rifle Regional Economic Development Corporation. And I know I said the dirty word rifle, but they hold the 501c3. So when you're starting out with this sort of organization, to try and form it and then try and go for the nonprofit status, not knowing the future of the group, whether it's going to continue or not, the REDC basically came in and said, we'll be your fiscal sponsor. They do it for the Rifle Farmers Market and for Rambo, the regional, the Rifle Area Mountain Biking Organization, so that these groups don't have to do all that work, essentially. They also invested $30,000 to have seed money to help get this partnership going. So that is kind of, if you look at the organizational chart, it's still independent. The board makes decisions on their own on how they spend their money, but it is that fiscal sponsor under the REDC. So the committee is made up of up to 13 members, and that is two per municipality, a public and a private. And where I think this is really important is you all have important points of view, and I know Jeff is our current Silt public member. But Derek, I have heard rumor that you may have some great expertise in this realm that might be something that we might be able to volunteer you.
Opinions.
Yes, I love opinions. Volunteer you to be the public member, and that would be great. The more representation or the more input we have from people in the business or having these discussions, I think that's how this is going to see success. Your private member is Cole Berger, who I'm sure you know. He is in partnership building Rislende, which is your event center restaurant. He also want to look at building commissary kitchens, kind of incubators for people. And we spent a couple of hours talking about all the economic ideas that he has with their structure and event center. So there's a lot of good ideas in Silt. And I'm really excited to have Cole on the group as well. He's really involved. So the reason we're here today is to ask for funding, of course. We need funding in order to continue to operate. We've applied for 2 grants so far. We have got 1, which is kind of exciting. I've been working since August, so to get at least 1 grant before the end of the year is a good achievement, I think. Grants are not guaranteed, though. There is a lot of money out there right now, but I don't think that's going to last for too much longer. I'm sure you're seeing it as well. There's a lot in infrastructure, a lot in regional or rural areas, especially in Colorado, and we'll capitalize on that, but you can't rely on grants to continue. So the goal is to have working capital to gather data, set strategic plan, and ultimately hire an executive director. So then they can start asking for some money too. The City of Rifle has committed $30,000 for 2024, and we're asking $10,000 of each other municipality, purely from a understanding that the population size and the general fund or the income revenue generation is not as high in the other areas. So I'm at Parachute on Thursday, and then Newcastle soon after. And then the library is also, hopefully they vote on it next month, $10,000 as well. So that'll give us a little pool to work with most of that going to strategic planning and gathering data over the next year in order to set up for future. You can go to the next slide, please. So where will your money go? The kind of short-term goals here, as I mentioned, assisting local businesses, hiring and retaining employees, resources to develop their business. As I mentioned, I think everybody's just struggling to stay afloat and keep the doors open, let alone how do you generate more business or learn how to do that. And also promoting the benefits of work where you live. The mission statement of this group is better jobs closer to home. Understanding the current economic assets. So as I mentioned, Silt has some great economic drivers right now, but there isn't really a report or data around what exists. I'm starting to find it a little bit through some resources with the library, but understanding what is here right now will help us then make a plan for what is needed in the future or what fits. I know that Evan Zislis has come to you with the airport or the aeronautics, different plans for that, and I've seen it too, and there's some great ideas. I don't know if it fits right now. So it's understanding what we have and where our opportunities are, and by doing that, we're not wasting time or resources on going after things that aren't really going to do much for our area. And then the other short-term goal, strategic planning and program development. I think it's really important, especially these days when it is hard to find good directors for the right amount, and finding whether they're here already or whether they're going to move here. There's a lot of components to it. If you have a plan and a roadmap for them to follow, you're likely going to have somebody who's able to execute on that, not spending all their time trying to create that. So that is the plan for 2024 as well. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, there is some history with this. I know that there's some hesitations as well. Rifle has seemed to receive or appeared to receive the bulk of new investment or new business. I understand with the new tractor supply that came in, or the movie theatre was another one back in the day that Michael Langhorne and the RADC did bring in. So I can fully acknowledge that and understand that, and I'm here to talk about it and really address the white elephant in the room. I'm not afraid to have those difficult conversations. Everybody wants a piece of the pie, and I think we all need a piece of the pie. And that's where I think the conversations with Jeff and other business leaders in the area, even I have friends that live here, I come to Silt quite often, and talking with them about what their needs are has really helped me understand where this hasn't been able to get off the ground before. So I just want to, I put this in here just to say I'm here to talk about it and acknowledge it. And if you have frustrations or want to understand why maybe one area got the promotion over another, let's figure that out. Let's see, identify what Silt's assets are and its selling points are, and find the best fits for you as well. You're always going to be part of the family, even if you spend money or not. I think that's part of our regional approach. We all have to work together in this. The reality is, though, as with any program, if we don't have funds to continue, it's likely it won't. So that's just something to recognize if you do not wish to continue to fund something like this. It is economic development. You've got to spend money to make money, essentially. So where will your investment be spent? Data, surveys, planning, and then the other area is web presence, building a good landing spot for people and businesses, starting out small, but how do you direct someone, you meet somebody on the airplane, he's like, oh, that sounds like a great place to bring a business. Oh, here, go to this website. Having a spot where everybody can be directed to find information on our region, I think is important. And it doesn't have to be fancy, interactive, or expensive, but it needs to be developed. So I think that's where, over the next year, this money should be used. And next slide, please. Actually, we can go to the next slide. It's kind of the same thing. I know everybody's is kind of getting... So this is my information. I kind of like to have interactive discussions on things. I know this is a lot to bring on you right now, but this has been talked about for a long time. And I think it's the time now as we come out of post-pandemic. How do we work together? And everybody's been very cordial, I think. I think it's been, people are looking to come together to find what would be best for the people in our region. I'll leave you with this point. I think the immeasurable aspect of this that I think is quite close to home for me, economic development is not just about making money. It's about how do you help citizens within your area thrive. And right now, and whether you see it or not, there is a civic capacity that people are getting to when they're commuting upwards of 3 hours a day, working 9 to 10 hours a day, trying to fit in something that they love to do or spend time with their family or just have dinner or watch a Broncos game or an Avs game. There isn't much time left over to be a part of your community. So when you think about it, if we can find ways to get better jobs closer to home, you allow people that time back to be a trustee on the board, to coach little league t-ball once a year or a season, to go up and have their public comment at their school board meeting because they feel so passionately about something. These are the things that help build the community, and with that, the economic development will come, because when people are in their community, they're eating at their restaurants, they're shopping at their local stores, and they're supporting their local businesses. Right now, most people are not here enough to support what is existing. So I think that's the part that's not seen and not really talked about much, but I think in my role, what I'm doing in the short term at least is to at least lead with that vision of how can we increase civic capacity in our communities so that our communities can thrive. Thanks.
Well, thank you for the presentation.
Oh, sorry.
10 grand is kind of steep for
It is.
for something with
Little return?
I was going to say iffy results, but little return or no guarantee that it's going to work or not.
Absolutely. Well, first rule of negotiation, always ask for more than you think you're going to get, because it gives you the ability to flex a bit.
Negotiate down.
Yeah. I will never apologize for asking for more. No, I understand that. And economic development is a long-term game. I think, what would be your ideal outcome, I guess? Help me understand your ideal outcome if you could have it any way you would like.
I mean, it would be nice to bring in more businesses,
Okay.
but like a Tractor Supply, we don't have any lots or space big enough for it. And I would assume that a place like Tractor Supply, they'll just automatically go to a place with more population.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
No.
So how does this organization or this group then understand what you have, what does exist, and then find ways to partner it up with someone that does fit that asset area? And I don't know that yet. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think whether the town of Silt has existing assets that the town owns, or even land. Land swaps are another option, or light manufacturing and also technology, starting to look at that and see it's not necessarily about space, but it's about connection to the internet is another thing. So that might be
that's where
opportunities.
something like
Yeah.
this would come in,
Yeah.
to kind of fill that gap or void that's,
Yeah.
you know,
It has.
missing.
We've got to build it for them to come, I think. But I see it's hard. You need the money too. We need to generate tax revenue, right? And getting that in 2028 doesn't really help you right now. So,
yeah.
One thing I'd like to reemphasize a little bit is that this is a new way of thinking about it. Before, when I first got here over 5 years ago now, RREDC, everybody knew what that meant. It was the Rifle Economic Development Corporation, because people in other places that they said they were representing didn't benefit from bringing a fast food restaurant in, or a movie theater, or whatever. We started this conversation to say, we're not after those businesses. We're after some larger, higher paying, better jobs closer to home. So this isn't about getting a $15 or $18 an hour job at a fast food restaurant. It's really about what kinds of careers could we bring to our valley between Newcastle and Parachute, where a person who's now driving up to Aspen every day for probably pretty good money. What could we do to bring an interest to this area? And I don't know that it's even possible. But until we spend the resources necessary to really go out there and try to understand what those, I'm not an economic development person. I don't know anything about it. But there are people out there who do this kind of work and have been successful. So what is it we can do to do the things that Alicia was talking about, where we can bring some of these folks home so that they can serve you? Nobody needs to tell you about driving miles and miles to go to work every day. I mean, you've all been there, you've all done it. What could the region do? I mean, so what if the call center or the high-tech, whatever it is in Rifle? Who cares? You're driving 7 miles for a $30 an hour job or whatever it is instead of 60. So the idea is, what can we do as a region to bring those jobs in? And you're right, Chris, at $10,000 on this list, it's not on there right now, by the way, because I anticipated this conversation. It's the biggest number you have on your contribution, you would have on your contributions list. And you're right, you're not getting a new boat ramp over there or new park improvements at Silt River Preserve. In fact, it's going to be hard to measure in year 1, 2, and 3. But I and I'm not making a pitch for a number. That's Alicia's job. But I am making a pitch for the concept, because we've tried to do it on the cheap. We tried the ASAP program a few years ago, and that just didn't.
It didn't. That's what kind
I
of soured
was
me on
not,
it.
the results of that, although interesting and maybe useful, I don't know that we've really had a lot of time to really
Wanna
delve
look at
into those with
everything.
you.
Absolutely.
But there might be something in there that might be, I mean, right now, the best, I think, having the Garfield County Libraries involved and the resources that they've brought to the table, may be the best thing we've seen, and those things are free.
Yeah, well,
Because
because
they're free to us, because they were
provide
paid
meetings-
for
meeting
already.
places and things
Yes.
throughout the community, throughout the
Right.
county, and all those, every town has one. And we're all lucky to have actually really nice libraries
Yes. we
throughout
have
the,
wonderful
throughout the
libraries.
county.
So anyway, I'll get off my
They're also,
horse here.
I've spoken with Jamie LaRue a lot about this. He's very in favor of economic development too, because he feels the same way. If you can have people in the community more, it drives more economic spending, and they want to do everything they can to help do this. So I agree. I think the space and the data that they have, and even getting access to newspapers without a paywall, just with your library card, your free library card, is one of our best assets. But it does cost money to get things going and to continue to operate. If you want to hire somebody with experience and wanting to do a good job, it's an $80,000 to $100,000 a year, and there's no benefits, right? Like an organization like this doesn't have benefits. How do you attract somebody like that without the initial investment? I'm not sure of the answer, but there is no point doing it halfway. You're just going to end up falling, and by you I mean the region. And
Well,
it's not just on you. It's
We do have experience with that, but I do want to give a shout out to Rifle Regional Economic Development
I know it's still long, too.
Corporation and Michael Langhorn, because he was, when we sort of talked about this, he jumped on it right away and said, hey, we've got grant money, let's use it for seed money. I think our board will be appreciative of this, and they'll run with it. So they've kind of taken a step back and are really focused on running the co-work.
Yes.
Is pretty much, and then maybe exploiting anything that comes directly to Rifle
Yeah, and I
to some
think that
degree.
the intention is, and quite possibly it could be that eventually the partnership goes off on its own and does form itself as
Right.
a 501c3 and just is focused on that. But I think right now it's getting something for free as well, and utilizing the resources that exist is important as well. I know Michael Langhorn's looking to retire soon as well.
Yeah.
He's been doing this for free since 2006, but I think there's the county finally said that they will have a seat on the board as well, which is huge. I think just to even have their support and their voice and their vote. We're going to go see them on December 11th and do the same thing. So I think everybody has an invested interest. Where this goes is kind of up to the group itself. I'm just helping facilitate them too.
Yep.
Yeah, and I will agree that it would be nice to have workers, stay here, just because in turn, that helps, develop a strong community, So I do agree with that, but there are so many jobs where they'll make 2 or 3 times the amount of money, even fighting the traffic. They're just always going to go that way. So it's a tough go around.
Totally agree.
All the way around.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the low-hanging fruit I see as well, is how do we build awareness around the pros and cons of this? A lot of people are in auto mode. I drove to Vail last week, and I thought to myself, how did I do this every day for 2 years? The gas price, just the traffic, everything. And now that I haven't been doing it, that's how I can think about that. People are in auto mode. They don't know any different. They might think that they can't make as much money here, but Grand River Hospital has pages and pages of job listings open, and they pay pretty good. Why do people choose to go to Aspen or Valley View? Maybe they just don't realize what opportunities are at Grand River. So it's helping connect the employee with the businesses that maybe do have great jobs or do have benefits, or understanding the pros and cons, and helping people to actually conceptualize those, that yes, it might pay a couple of dollars extra an hour, but when you weigh it all up, you're actually better off if you take this other job closer to home. I think that's an opportunity for the group to provide resources for that.
How does this overlap with what a chamber would do?
Yeah, great question. So the chamber is currently without an executive director, any employees. And I say the Colorado River Valley Chamber. I know Newcastle has a chamber, but they're also struggling. It's volunteer-based. Dave Reynolds has said that they're struggling to just kind of operate as well. So they're reinventing themselves, is my understanding. I just spoke with Larry Stewart this morning, who's the president of the chamber there, and they want to focus more on providing. They're getting away from events. They're not going to focus so much on doing events. Partnering with an organization like ours, and they're also headquartering in the Rifle Co-work as well now, is being that go-to for businesses and business workshops. So working with the SBDC and maybe I would love to see them create the like a healthcare option. So being small businesses can go through the chamber for healthcare, or their ski passes, things like that, little resources, rather than the bigger picture regional strategic planning of what the partnership will do. So more of that day-to-day business resource or planning.
And Sheila can clarify for me, but I think Larry Stewart's going to be at our board meeting on the 27th to
For the
chat with
chamber?
you. Mhm. For the chamber, yes.
That is correct.
Good job getting here first.
I know, I'm going to tell him that. I'll be.
I think this is necessary. I don't want to speak to the dollar amount request, but we talk about it over and over and over, that economic development is part of community development, and it's about doing it in a measured, pragmatic way that helps us build the community that we want to have. And the chamber, I'm not going to go off on that rant, except to say that once again, there's no executive director, so now we're up to what, 5 and 4 years?
Something's not working.
I don't know how much longer we can wait for the chamber to show up. And if this is a viable alternative to that, I'm all in. And I know from recent conversations with Jamie, myself, I wanted to, it's a separate topic, but I want to try and get him to come out here and talk with the board about some of the services that the library can offer so that the community hears about it. I'm also on an advisory group for CMC.
Oh, great.
And they met last week, and they're talking about the same thing at the same time.
Yep.
This is what we should be doing. And again, I don't want to predict a dollar amount or decide what it should be in this meeting. We need some sort of economic development advocacy. There's no other group that's doing it right now.
And the importance of it being regional based, I think, is important because none of the 4 towns that are involved have the individual infrastructure to make it work. For some of these big companies, we want to bring somebody big in, but because we can lean on each other, then that would make it work. And like you said, unfortunately, yeah, say some big employer goes into Rifle because they have the space there. If people from Silt are able to drive there to go to work versus driving all the way up Valley or whatever, it's still going to help Silt out. It's going to help Silt residents. It's going to help the community. And then it's also one of those things where once one of those things comes in, then others come in, then others, it builds on itself. And yeah, it's not going to come in overnight, and it may not be quantifiable necessarily with dollar amount, but I think that there are definitely quality of life things that are important, that would be huge in something like this.
I think one of the reasons that some organizations have been choosing, and this is an anecdote, I don't have evidence to support it. I think one of the reasons that businesses have been choosing Glenwood and Rifle is that Newcastle and Silt and Parachute don't have the level of advocacy that we're talking about now. In a lot of cases, they don't know we exist.
That's a good point. And something else that may be beneficial for the group from a regional perspective is how do we all work together from a municipality standpoint to create similar business or economic development codes. So if every town is different, and I don't know yet, I'm just, I don't know this for a fact, but if they're different or somebody comes to 5 Silt meetings and then goes to 1 Rifle and then gets a green light or because of a different code, that might also direct people to a certain area. So how can maybe as a region we come up with consistent business codes or economic codes to attract people to the area and make it easy to work with all of us together? And I don't know if that'll happen in the first year, but it's an opportunity, I think, as we continue to talk with each other as a region.
Yes. What I'm saying, I guess I'm just looking here, it says $10,000 will not go far to help Silt alone. But it looks like reading that you're going to need a fair amount of funds from different investors to make this work. So if we commit less than 10 isn't going to even help. But if we commit to anything, the other investors don't go through, we're kind of out.
And a lot of the other, dare I call them key players, we talked about, Larry. I had a conversation with Dave Reynolds a week and a half ago about the same topic, economic development. Going back to CMC, Tinker's on the board, and she's employed by CMC and also deeply involved in economic development for them.
But
the people that can help bring about these changes
have they committed
are
yet?
Involved.
But they haven't committed.
So Rifle has committed 30,000.
Yeah.
The library is tentative on 10,000. I just am waiting. I presented to them here actually at their Silt meeting 2 weeks ago. And then Newcastle, I'm waiting to present to them. And then Parachute, I'm presenting on Thursday. The county presenting to on December 11th. So be asking for them. I'm optimistic. I'm a very optimistic person though as well. I see your point.
You're a Broncos fan. You have to be.
I know. I tell you. Hold on to Super Bowl 50 forever.
I know Jamie has an interest.
I think the reality is everybody wants and needs money to operate. And if this doesn't go ahead, we will do what we can through the next year with what we have and continue to ask for money. I mean, that's the main job of what I'm doing. I'm a consultant right now, but whoever becomes in, the main job is always fundraising, continuously applying for grants and taking advantage of what's out there right now. So we'll see what happens, but any contribution is appreciated, and just know that, again, you're always part of the family. It's not that we're going to ostracize Silt from any opportunity if you don't give any money. That's not what this is about. This is about how can we work together as a region to bring better jobs closer to home, essentially.
So I just have 2 points to make. One, I definitely want to discuss, I don't want to be, early with this, but the chamber has not done anything for us.
You guys are stealing all my end of the
So-
night comments. Now I have nothing to talk about.
I agree.
The chambers used to be good when people that own businesses retired and they volunteered to help new people foster businesses. Now it's people that want to foster those businesses without putting in the time and effort and previously having a business. So most of the time it just doesn't work out. So I do want to discuss as this group how much to donate to this thing. One of the things you said, though, is you think low-hanging fruit and existing businesses are the easiest place to start.
Most important place to start.
So we have a huge economy in here that is oil and gas,
Yep.
and nobody wants to help that group out anymore. So,
What do you mean by that?
because there's never been enough pushback from the smaller players against the state government and the federal government to stop them from killing that industry.
So, to comment on that, I think the AGNC, who is also a member on our voting board, I feel that they are focused a lot on that advocacy right now and having them as a partner for our region. So over 1/3 of our GDP is oil and gas, but our GDP has been stagnant over the last 10 years because of the volatility of oil and gas. The last couple of years it's declined because of oil and gas. So I think the goal is to support that industry because it is a huge player. And I say this as my husband is an environmental geologist, so it's not just the dirty word oil and gas or who's pulling it from the ground. There's a lot of jobs that come out of this. So yes, it is a huge industry here. And how do we look at that from a bigger standpoint rather than just what is going on with taking oil out or gas out of the ground, right? Or the regulations that are coming in. He has a job because there are regulations. So I think there's a lot more work to be done in how we can see the offset of that industry. But as Warren Buffett said, you got to diversify, right? If we just continue to be handcuffed by the oil and gas industry in our region, we're going to be playing catch up all the time. So I think there's a bit of both. Is how do we support that industry and keep it going, and how do we find other jobs to go along with that and other economic drivers to go along with that? And I do think AGNC is a huge player in that. They're working a lot with, and not to kind of jump out of our area, but Craig and the coal transition communities. There is the Just organization. There's also, I feel like I have a needs assessment hour-long conversation with people every week on what our community needs from the Front Range organizations to say, how can we help you with a variety of different clean energies. So there's a lot of talk around it. I don't think it's going away completely, but I see your point. It's getting harder and harder for those companies to find a profit here, so why would they continue?
Right.
Yeah,
I think
because that was an economic driver, a huge economic driver in this county. And as time goes on, there's more and more rules and regulations that are trying to squash it. And
It's just volatile, though. It's hard to, you can't plan everything around that one industry.
You can't plan anything around one industry,
Yeah,
but
yep.
to foster an industry that's already here, as opposed to hoping some giant tech company decides to build in this valley.
That's not realistic
It's
either,
not.
is it?
I mean, yeah. So we have to, as a group, and it's the, AGNC is working on that. we can't expect them to work on that. That's the whole thing about getting together, is we all have to work on, no matter what it is. I don't care if you build 10 billion acres of solar plant, like, you know,
Exactly,
we
and-
work together.
So Morgan, I just out there was having a conversation with her about how we need to connect on what energy jobs are available, organizations are to, and connect it to here, because that's looking to the future, 20 years out, where do you want to be?
Where do you want to be? Yeah.
And that's to your point of it's a little, the ROI is long-term, it's not
Yeah.
in the immediate future.
Yeah, this is one where we're not gonna spend money and next year have the pretty shiny thing.
Yeah.
This is a long-term investment, so.
And we have historically invested in the chamber.
Right.
So it's really about a transfer of that investment versus this amount being a new investment. Right?
And it could be a transfer and a new investment, potentially.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and I
but we
think-
might get something out of this. We're never going to get anything out of the chamber.
Just to defend the chamber a little, I think they are re-envisioning or finding, like you said, finding relevancy in today's world is what they need to figure out.
They have to figure out, yeah.
Yeah.
And Carolyn Tucker from CDLE, another conversation that I had last week, they're also looking to grow out here. Startup Colorado is
with her a lot,
collaborating with CDLE on a lot of those issues. There's a lot of momentum to try and do more out here. The last thing I'll add is a lot of employers, small to mid-size, are now looking at hybrid employees.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of having to go in or drive to Vail every day of the week, it's one day a week for meetings.
Yeah.
I think those changes post-COVID give Silt another opportunity. Even if it's not opening a business here, it's about attracting more employees through a hybrid work environment who can participate in the community here and become valued members.
Well, and the Dave and Matt's vans, DM vans now, I guess, I knew them from up my time in Eagle County, but it's a great example of an organization or manufacturing that has great potential and is the future, building $100,000 vans that people come in and they buy, and they come into our community and they go and they go to our natural resources and recreational opportunities around here, and they think, oh, I might stay a little while. Your KOA across the road is booked up all the time. And even the tiny homes, and when you think about how much they're going for now and they're sold out compared to when they first started, people are relocating to our areas because it's a great place to live. And you're right, even if they are working remotely, they're still here in the town. They're going to our coffee shops, they're going to our events or paying utilities, things like that. So it's all part of the bigger economic development umbrella.
The big long-term umbrella, yeah.
Nope.
Okay.
And please feel free to reach out to me anytime. I am on a part-time basis working, but I always try and get back to you in a meaningful time period. But I'm also just down the road. We'd love to invite you to we should have a council connections.
Council connections.
Would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Alicia. Good to see you.
You too.
Nice job.
Have a great holiday season.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Thanks, you too.
The next item on the agenda was the approval of the brew pub liquor license for All In Brewing, but staff has requested continuance to November 27th, 2023. So we will move on to the first reading of ordinance number 7, series 2023.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Could I please have you make a motion to continue the public hearing for that, please?
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, make a motion to extend the public hearing of the approval of the brew pub liquor license till the November 27th, 2023 meeting.
I'll second.
Motion by Trustee Seifert to continue the approval of the brew pub liquor license for All In Brewing until November 27th, 2023, seconded by Trustee Clausen. All is in favor?
Aye.
All is opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we will jump into the first reading of ordinance number 7, series 2023. An ordinance of the Town of Silt, Colorado, amending chapters 2.08 and 2.44 of the Silt Municipal Code to establish procedures for collections of money owed to the town and the Silt Municipal Court, Town of Silt, Garfield County, State of Colorado. I will turn this over to Clerk McIntyre.
Thank you very much. And as my action item summary says, this ordinance is basically a way to allow the municipal court to collect on fines that have been ignored by people who've been ordered them through the courts. We find that we don't have anything anymore with any teeth in it that helps us to hold people to their debt. So this will assist with that. It will also help out with the town as well on items that we can't place a lien on, mostly AR accounts receivable, to where we can go ahead and turn these over to collections as well to try and get our money back. So with that, I would answer any questions you might have on this.
All right. Anybody have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
I have a quick question. Do we have any kind of number on an outstanding balance that this will help resolve?
I do not have anything off the top of my head right now. I would guess we have a few $1,000s in money. What? Go ahead, Amy.
I don't know about court, but I know that we have two businesses that one owes more than $4,000 and one owes about $9,000, and they're just ignoring that completely.
Right, in the accounts receivable. The courts, I know we'll have a few thousand if I were to put together. Plus, we're also looking into the fact that we have a lot of old warrants that we're looking to see if we can quash them and maybe turn those into a monetary obligation to collect on those as well.
Thank you.
All right. Any other further questions before I open up the public hearing?
Nope.
All right. The time is 9:11 p.m. and I'll open up the public hearing for the first reading of ordinance number 7, series 2023. Persons desiring to make public comment on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, did you have any phone calls or emails in regards to this agenda item?
No, I did not, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
I do not show any raised hands.
Thank you. We have nobody here in the chambers with us, so it is 9:12 p.m. and I will close the public hearing and open up to further discussion by the board or a motion.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 7, 2023 as presented.
I'll second.
Motion by Trustee Hanrahan to approve the first reading of ordinance number 7.
Trustee Britnall.
Trustee Britnall.
Look how insulted he looked.
Motion by Trustee Britnall to approve the first reading of ordinance number 7, series 2023. That was seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Hanrahan. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then I'll turn it over to our town administrator to see if he wants to do his updates or
Yeah,
property taxes.
Yeah, I want to do both, actually. I want to give you highlight a couple of things in my report. The first three items had to do with housing, and the Valley View affordable housing thing is still nominally moving forward, so is Heron's Nest. Neither of those are progressing at a pace which would garner the interest of any grants. So I mentioned the More Housing Now grants in my third bullet point there. We were really cautioned by our DOLA rep to not bring half-baked ideas to that process. So we'll have to take a little time, and we'll see if these two projects gets ahead of steam, a little better ahead of steam, to see if they might be eligible for some of these housing grants later. So I think I had already written this when I heard that last week, so I didn't want to offer any false hope of big dollar grants for our utilities at this point. Broadband's moving forward. I know some of you expressed some interest on that, or in that project. We're still not in a place where we know what the last mile process for selection is going to look like. There are a lot of balls in the air on that. I think the effort is so intent on just getting this middle mile stuff done that there's not a lot of bandwidth sorry, Derek, sorry, to be able to develop the rest of the program. I just think we're just not there yet, but we will be coming back to the board when there's something to talk about. It is, I mean, we're gonna have a building pretty soon, right? I mean, you guys are out there, somebody was out there digging.
Yeah, the foundation's in.
Yeah.
The building it either got set on Friday or gets set this Friday.
Oh, well, there you
I
go.
can't remember which one.
It's coming up.
I saw them working on it Saturday.
Yeah.
I know traffic calming is a big issue for the board, and we haven't forgotten. We are working on that. In fact, we have a meeting at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning with Derek Walter to come in with some town staff. I think Derek and I and Chief Kite to talk about how do we go about addressing some of the concerns that you've had. We do have some data that we're going to be going over, and I would guess that sometime after the first of the year, we'll come back to you with some thoughts about how we move forward. Traffic is the title or the subject of the next bullet 2, and that's transportation congestion. We talked, I think, earlier in a roundabout way about how people are driving up Valley. We've all been part of those traffic jams, and one way or the other. And so this was an effort by some in the community to look long-term at where does this go? I mean, if we're all building housing here and the jobs are still over there, what does that grid look like in 10 years? So it's really just a matter of trying to figure out, well, I don't even know what the end game is at this point, but there are people talking about it, smarter people than me, and I'm encouraging them to keep talking. And we will keep, we have to find a leader. CDOT provided a forum and a sort of to have the conversation, but now they've said they've sort of done their part, and somebody locally needs to pick it up, whether it's Garfield County or one of the towns, to sort of spearhead things. That's where it needs to probably go at this point. The one thing I wanted to I mentioned earlier is space needs. You'll recall that we put $75,000 in the 2023 budget to hire a consultant to study our needs. We were hoping that would be town-wide, including Public Works, how that impacts other town facilities that we have, and how we could plan for the long-term future. We've become increasingly aware that our needs right here in this building are such that we really need to, we feel like there's nobody better to be able to express what we need in this building than those of us who work here. So we are going to bring to you in the budget a number, which I don't know that we really have yet, to convert that garage bay into community development, police, and admin, or something. We haven't really started kind of nailing that down, but we are going to start doing that very soon. But we want to use the money that we previously had earmarked for a study to actual construction, to actually get something done. My office needs to be on this floor, and community development needs a different space. Police needs a little more space. We just need to kind of rejigger the building a little bit to accomplish our goals. So we're gonna do that. And then last but not least, you're all invited to the end of the year party. We hope you'll come December 1st. And I think you've already gotten invitations and
Yes, we did.
maybe you've already even RSVP'd. So that's all I have. Thank you.
You skipped over the $1 million.
Oh, yes, the grant.
Oh,
Oh.
did I
He
tell you?
just says, oh.
I saw
Did I tell you?
I think we've already,
We got a $1 million EIAF grant, largely due to Deborah Figueroa's grant writing and Trey's work on that grant as well. And
in spite of Derek's help.
Now I really have.
That's
No,
why
I really appreciate everybody that went. Derek, thank you for going on being up there for that. It's important to show that, for them to have that, see the support from a board and other people besides just individuals is huge, I'm sure, and stuff like that. So, on a serious note, thank you, actually. I'm just being.
Thank you for being there.
That's all I have.
Okay. All right. Any other staff member want to hit on anything in their reports?
You probably heard on the radio, they were talking about the IMTPR again and whether it's gonna split. The STAC meeting happened last week and they recommended not to split it, but the transportation commissioners meet tomorrow. And that will be the final say, cause STAC is just an advisory committee. But they recommended not to split the IMTPR, but, so it possibly might not split. But we'll know officially tomorrow or Thursday after the transportation commissioners meet and vote on it.
Sounds good. We'll see what happens. Okay. Updates from the board and board comments. We'll start with Trustee Clausen.
I don't have anything.
All right. Trustee Seifer.
Just want to put a shout out to everybody that did the Halloween. It was every year it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was a big hit this year. There's a lot of people. We gave away, I don't know how much, every year we give away more candy, but the streets were packed. They started early and stayed till the bitter end. You ran out of pumpkins when?
We continue to increase the amount of pumpkins that we buy, and we continue to run out, so.
And you still ran out.
Yeah.
I mean, we weren't hardly going, you already had ran out, so.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the event is growing for sure.
yeah. That's all I had.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem.
Related to Alicia and the CRV EDP, I think we need to get Larry Stewart in here to discuss what, if anything, is happening with the chamber to help guide our larger discussion about are we going to fund the CRV EDP in the coming year. Sounds like they're out of an executive director again. I think she started in June. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. So 5 months, which is less than her predecessor, because I think that was 9 months. So we need to get Larry in here to understand, are they just dissolving? Are they going to try and keep going? The other thing I wanted to mention, Jamie LaRue, who's the executive director of the Garfield County Libraries, had expressed an interest in coming in front of the board just to talk about the services that are currently available at the Silt Library, as well as, you may or may not be aware, but the libraries have been in the news a lot recently. So we wanted to meet with us and answer any questions any of us might have about the impact on that at the Silt Library. That's it.
Okay.
We can invite him to come and chat with you.
And I can connect you with him if you don't already. I
know
assume you
Jimmy.
do. Okay.
Yep. We've had coffee, actually.
He's awesome.
He bought.
We'll buy coffee next time.
Okay.
All right, Trustee Poston.
I don't have a lot of comments, but I also want to say thank you for the efforts on the EIAF grant. Great job. All of those grants ultimately helping our citizens save some money down at the end of the line once we get the water plant project going. And thank you to Treasurer Tucker preparing the financials. I can only imagine the amount of work, detailed work that comes into all the reporting and all that is asked to get that audit complete. It's good to see that our revenues and expenditures are in line, that in just very few items we were under, let's call it that. But yeah, that's about it.
All right, Trustee Brittenell?
I had something. I did notice a new kiosk over at Veterans Park as I was driving by. It's gonna be a great spot for people to, as they're out walking, to see an additional place for community engagement, which is something we're always working on. Getting more things about what's going on, and just take advantage of the warm weather while it's here, because it won't be here long.
For sure. In the packet, there was the letter supporting the High Country four-wheelers to build the trail up at Squirrel Valley. I don't know what BLM's take is going to be. The BLM just shut down, or is planning on shutting down 30% of the trails in Moab for off-road vehicle use. As of, this was the beginning of October, they came out with their plan to shut all this down. And of course, it's one of those things where it's being closed to motorized vehicles, but left open for bicyclists. So if we are, as a board, we do the OHVs in town, if we want to try and be, let them be up in Squirrel Valley, I think it's going to be a long, hard fight with the BLM and the direction they're going with public land. So I do want to say thank you to staff, though, for deciding to spend $75,000 on doing a project and not designing a project that they think they want to do. I think we have a plenty capable staff to be able to get something done with that money. So instead of wasting it once and doing it twice, let's just do it once. So thank you to everyone that made that decision and pushed that through. So, other than that, I've got nothing. So we do have an executive session.
May I? Yeah, I know this is out of order, but one thing I forgot to mention is Tuesday, November 21st, we have our 4th annual White Christmas celebration on Main Street. It is a blast.
Yes.
And it'll finish up again with fireworks this year, Santa Claus, schnapps and hot chocolate and s'mores and the whole thing. And it is really, really fun. For those of you who might have forgotten, a woman came up to me at the end of last year's event when we were saying goodbye, and she said, this is just like a Hallmark movie. So come on out. It's really fun.
And which day was that again?
It's Tuesday before Thanksgiving, the 21st.
21st, so next Tuesday.
Yep.
Next Tuesday, yep.
It is.
Week from tomorrow.
Next
Week from tomorrow.
Tuesday.
Week from tomorrow.
Okay.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Okay.
Last year, we had a really good community presence, a lot of people.
Yep.
All right. I will read this and then we'll get set up for our executive session. So, I move to go into executive session to discuss the purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale of any real, personal, or other property interest under CRS Section 24-6-4024A. Discussion on the purchase of property.
I'll second that.
All right. Motion made by the mayor to enter executive session, seconded by Trustee Clausen. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I'm going to grab a drink. Okay. The time is 10:23 p.m. and the executive session has concluded. No formal action was taken in the executive session. The participants in the executive session were, no one entered the executive session, no one left the executive session. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session
believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violations of the open meetings law. I would ask that you state your concerns for the record.
None.
Seeing none, the next item on the agenda is adjournment.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by trustee Seifert to adjourn the meeting, seconded by trustee Clausen. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful